right, to continue on from our first set of leagues, our second set of leagues was Domination and Nemesis. So Domination was the softcore version, Nemesis was the hardcore version. Domination added in, it did not add in Rogue Exiles, that is a typo that I'll fix. It added in Shrines. So Shrines is what comes from Domination League. There's a second standard league. It did launch alongside with Nemesis. It did add the following base items: Jade Flask, Quartz Flask, Sanctified Life and Mana Flask, and 2 Stone Rings. The uniques were the Gull and Lavania's Spirit. And then it shared the Barracks set, which also includes the Taming and Blood of the Cruelty. Item Quantity Gem was also disabled for this league. And then it has our release version. This is the first live league, I believe. So 1.0 is when it finally went out of beta and went into an actual game. So this is what a shrine looks like. There's a link to the league as well as all the shrines. If you are not familiar with what the different shrines do, if you click on that link, it will go over every different possible scenario as far as shrines are concerned. That way you can learn what they do. Nemesis. So it added a Nemesis modifier. It was the second hardcore league. Same base items. The unique was Headhunter, which is still a chase unique to this day. Still has the same shared. The other thing that's important to note with Nemesis is yellow text with a red outline is a Nemesis modifier, and that's still today. That's still valid today. So if you see yellow text on any rare monsters with a red outline, that is a Nemesis monster. This will have the modifiers as well as the league info. So if you aren't familiar with what Berserker does, you can click on Nemesis modifiers and you can read about Berserker. And that way you have access to a resource for some of this old content that you may or may not have played. I've played most of these leagues. There are a handful I skipped, but I'll cover that as well. Reception and implementation. Both of these were very well received. Domination was very well received from the standard community. Nemesis was really, really, really well received by the hardcore community. And it was, at this point in time, there wasn't quite the animosity that comes up later. Like, I'm gonna note that later. At this point in time, most people would play both leagues. So you would play the standard league and the hardcore league and just kind of see which one you liked more. There wasn't as big of a racing scene at this point in time. There also wasn't as much contention. That comes a little bit later when the contention really starts brewing between the two sects. Luckily, that has tapered off now. But there was a time when it was a little bit hostile between the standard community and the hardcore community. And I've always kind of enjoyed both, especially in this format. And I wish that we almost went back to this format because it invites people that normally wouldn't play hardcore to play hardcore because that league is more entertaining to them. So I think there was some validity to the way of doing this. And I also think the leagues were a little bit less complex, which is also kind of a good thing. Like, I feel like we've gotten a little too crazy with the complexity of some of the leagues. And while it's good every once in a while, it's also good to have more of a brain off league or a league that's just interesting. It doesn't have to be crazy, but it's just interesting concept-wise. And I wish, like, doing this has kind of made me realize, like, wow, I played a lot more hardcore early on than I play now. Right, I play basically mainly softcore now. I normally will play Trade League just because I enjoy playing with my friends, and that's what they typically play, and we can, you know, share gear between each other and all. Sometimes I'll play solo Self-Found. Sometimes I'll play hardcore, but it's basically like when I really want to be challenged, I play hardcore, not because there's an incentive to play hardcore, which I think is something that's missing now, which did happen back then, was there was a reason to play hardcore because you could only play this league if you played hardcore. And I think that was good for the community because I think it made it where people had more of a distinct choice of whether they were going to play standard or hardcore. And I think it's good and it fosters something that is positive. And maybe it would be too difficult for them because they're in this cycle now. But it would be interesting to see if they would go back to something like this. Just for like 1 or 2, even if it's like just a flashback. Like before PoE 2, if they did a flashback of a month long of each of the, I think it's like the first 6 or 7 leagues where there is a standard and a hardcore version of it, and they release the game, like re-release the game with basically those in place. I think something like that would be really cool, and it could test the waters, and it could also give them a lot of development time because I know that they're hard at work on PoE 2, and we want them to have the time that they need to make sure that that launches well and successfully, because that's in everybody's best interest. So maybe something like that would be really cool and something that we could implement in the future just to ease their development cycle and make it where hopefully there's not a delay. That's also another good point, is anytime that there's going to be a delay, it would be interesting if they would do something like that, like a flashback month-long league. Just one of them, one of the previous leagues. You probably want to stay with one of the better received ones or one of the more controversial ones. Or maybe even if they have a way of reverting the game back to that. Like, it would be really cool to see how modern players would tackle a nerfed Invasion League. It would be actually really fun to watch and play. I would enjoy that. Most people would not enjoy that, but I would enjoy that. But it would make for great stream content, and it would be a great content generator to see the old school, because you also have to remember there wasn't nearly as many skill gems at that point in time. I know I kind of went on a rant there, but I hope you have a good one, and I will get this next one up pretty soon as well. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.